There have been many questions, asked, especially by His Excellency, my dear friend, Atiku Abubakar is a senior friend. And he was asked, I'm going to run the 7 posers that I put forward, and I'm going to answer them. How much is the total cost of the coastal road? The answer is that we cannot put, even when a construction starts, you can't fix the cost of the construction. It's ups and down, and that's why we have variation on price, VOP. And that's what we have reviewed, because if the cost inflation comes up, you have to review the project. But the first section is, phase 1, section 1. And by the way, what is coastal road? Coastal road is 700 kilometers running from Lagos, Ahmad Bello Way, passing through the coastal states, about 9 of them, and they're terminating at Calabar. And it has phase 2, which has a spur on the Badagry-Sokoto road and a spur on the Enugu-Abakaliki-Ogoja to Cameroon road. So this is phase 2. And so phase 1 is being procured in sections. So we started with 0 point, which is the starting point of the project. And the 0 point is, the first section is 47.47 kilometers, which translates to, in terms of how much is 1.067 trillions. Some people say we paid 1.067 trillion. The answer is no, we have not paid, but we have paid money according to the Procurement Act and according to the policy of the Federal Ministry of Works. So the second section is starting from, this one is starting from Amabeda and running to Deep Seaport. And the second section is starting from Lekki Deep Seaport and is running to the border between Ogun and Ondo State. And that is section 2. And the first section is 36 months, the second section is 36 months, and they are going to be running independent of the other. And so the third section is starting from Calabar, the end of the project, and is running towards Akwa Ibom. And that's going to be 65 kilometers. Another section is going to start from, Port Harcourt, moving towards Bayelsa. And that is going to be the first section. The fifth section is starting from Delta and running towards Ondo State. Now, it does not necessarily mean that all these, 6 sections are connected. No. The idea is to start activities on all those roads. And there is none of them apart from the one of the section 1 that is less than 50 kilometers. There is none that is that. So when this, are started, then we start interconnecting them. And so we are also designing, redesigning, aligning, and realigning based on situation on ground. So we can only tell you the cost of each of the section, but you could have an estimate. And by the time I finish, you can form an estimate by yourself. But it's not going to be, it could come up, it could come down. And that is it. But the most important thing for us as Nigerians is, what is the importance of this route? And then, is there any value for money? And the answer is yes, I'm here to run the figures. And when I run the figures, you do the comparison. The second one is that they said, why is it that federal government is funding this project, whereas it is a PPP project? In a PPP project, is, there are 2 types. It could be operate and maintain, and it could be build, operate and maintain, and sometimes, transfer. That is what the PPP is. But the project we are doing, the coastal road, is EPC plus F, which is engineering, procurement, construction and finance. And in all EPC plus F, the federal government, the client is required to have a commitment. They say it's where your money is, that's where your heart is. And so the commitments is to underscore the commitment of federal government, to say, look, we are ready to do this job. And I give you an example of EPC plus F. We have the already concluded Kefi, that is near Abuja to Makurdi. That project is completed and is EPC plus F, being executed by the China Harbor, company. We have another EPC, federal government pay 50% of the counterpart funding. We have another EPC plus F, which is a road that is running from Makurdi to 9th Mile in Enugu. And these are all inherited projects. It's also EPC plus F. It's ongoing now. And it's also, the federal government is committed to 15% equity funding. So in the coastal route, it's CPC plus F. Now, in my state, and I said it this morning, I had, borrowed money from African Development Bank to do concrete road of 199 kilometers within the last 18 months of my tenure as governor of Ebonyi State. And I was to pay, I think, about 20% equity. I elected to use the money to do about 53 kilometers. And I did that, and of course I had to showcase that concrete road would work. And that's what they eventually used to do the entire route. So you have to demonstrate your equity in many forms. And so in this coastal route under EPC plus F, we demonstrated our own commitment by saying, yes, the first 3 sections, we procure it by the funding of the federal government. And when we run the figures, we know whether we are putting more funds or we are doing more sections by our own equity, which is going to be 15% and 30%. So the investors or promoters are still, in fact, have gotten funds. And by the time we finalize the design, the realignment, they can start extra 5 sections, apart from sections 1, 2, 3. And that is going to be by the funds that is injected into society. One of the key cardinals of this project is that it's bringing foreign investment. And when a nation is in recession, one of the greatest things you have to do, and Obama did it, is to develop infrastructure. When you develop infrastructure, you bring down inflation, because it's a catalyst, to all other economic, promotion in a country. And so I've been able to explain to you that it's CPC plus F, and that the investors or the promoters are committed and have gotten funds to continue the projects in many other sections. They asked why is the project taken off from Chagori, Eco-Atlantic. It is of late that I knew about Eco-Atlantic and high-tech engineering. I'm purely a technical person and a stakeholder in this country. And when you have a project, it becomes political if you don't start project at the 0 point. Chene 0 is at a Ahmad Bello way, and that's where we have started the project. But also, it's also the most viable economically to complete it and toll it and begin to get some money also. And again, we are also continuing the section 1 onto, past the Lekki Deep Seaport. There are a lot of activities there. So it will also help people that are traveling to south, southeast, and instead of going through the Tom Mainland Bridge and so on and so forth, they just go through Ekpe, and through tax credit of Dangote, we are also building a road, from Lekki Deep Sea Port and also towards Ekpe. So this project, the sections 1 and 2, is also evacuation corridor for the heavy activities that are going on at Deep Sea Port, and it's also increasing, with time. So starting the project at 0 point, because it's 0 point, and that's Ahmad Bello way, and it's the most, viable economically. They asked why is 1.06 trillion being spent on 47.4 kilometers. You can darken council without knowledge, because when you fly these figures, you don't explain, then it becomes a problem. Let me explain, and I've been running figures since yesterday I came in, that His Excellency, my senior friend, said that the project of the administration of Goodluck Ebele Jonathan negotiated this coastal road for $12.8 billion for 700 kilometers. But that is said that the project of the administration of President Buhari renegotiated it downwards by about $800 million, and it came to about $1.1 billion. And so I had to, when we were about starting the coastal road, I asked for the design of this coastal road. And the only design and what His Excellency based his calculations and the submissions analysis was on NDDC, design. And NDDC design is here. I took the entire design. It could fill half of these rooms, but I took time to analyze it and to see if we could get some benefit from it to also, work on the design of our own. So the design of the NDDC is on 4 lanes. 4 lanes, one carriageway by the left, one carriageway by the right. You have the hard shoulder of 3 meters. And so the total, if you come to cross section, the total of the cross section that is designed is 23 meters. 23 meters. That's what you are going to put asphalt on top. And the asphalt is poorly designed. It's only for, stone base of 20 cm. Then you have the binder cost of 6 cm. You have the wearing cost of 6 cm. First of all, it's defective in the sense that in a coastal road, you don't use asphalt because the water table is very high, and so it is bound to fail. But concrete is very friendly with water. It's friendly with water. And when you draw the graph of a concrete in terms of the maturity, you find out that in 28 days, the concrete reaches 95% of the strength. But when you further draw the graph, it goes to infinity, which means that concrete continues to gain strength with time. But of course, also with time, it will start to deteriorate. So when you now say that the 4 lanes or 20 plus the shoulders 23 meters at that cross section is costing 11.1 billion. I now use an exchange rate of 1,200 naira per dollar. And so I made my calculation, and I want to let you know that the standard carriageway of superhighway is 7.3 plus inner shoulder of 1.5 plus outer shoulder of 2.75. When you add it, it gives you 11.55. And that's what you have Lagos-Ibadan. Don't worry that Third Mainland Bridge is 14 meters, which is, 4 lanes, this side and 4 lanes. Now, if you look at the size of that's Lagos Third Mainland Bridge, what we have in our own coastal highway is a total of 10 lanes. 10 lanes. And these 10 lanes, also include the middle. The corridor is 100 meters. The corridor of NDDC is 52 meters. And so this includes 25 meters, which the train will run through. But the NDDC own has no train provision. There's no train provision. The middle is like a basin that collects water, like what you have in most of the highways. So if we go back to the figures, and you find out that the design of the NDDC is 2.225 times of a standard gauge. 2.225. If you divide 23 meters by 11.55, which is the standard gauge, you will get 2.225, which means that at every cross section of the road you have, it means that that cross section is 2.225 multiples of a standard gauge. When you run our own figures is a total of 59 meters at every cross section. And when you divide it by 11.55, you'll be getting 5.167, 5.167, which means that our road cross section is 5.167 multiples of a standard gauge. That's what it is. Now, if we go back to the figures, and then you use the divide 11.1 billion dollars multiplied by 1,200 and divided by 700 kilometers, you will get a kilometer at 19 billion naira for the NDDC project. About 19 billion naira. Okay? When you divide it by 2.225 to know what a standard gauge of that project will give you, you will get 8.52 billion. Is that correct? So meaning that a standard gauge of the design of NDDC was going to cost them 8.522 billion. When you take our own project 1.067, you divide it by 47.47 to get the cost per kilometer. the cost per kilometer. Now, when you divide this cost per kilometer, you now divide it by 5.167 to get the multiple, the cost of a multiple standard gauge of this highway. You will get 4.32 billion. So there is no basis for comparison, and I will outline the advantages. One is that the design of the NDDC on asphalt and a very poor, pavement, treatment, was bound to fail if that project was built. The cost is twice the cost of this one. This one is reinforced concrete that is built on 10 inches with wide 20 millimeter rods. And so the two cannot be compared. It's like, comparing +1 with -1. So that is the figures we can run. And somebody asked me, Dave, for what is the total cost of the coastal road? Some people have made mistakes in terms of trying to calculate the total cost. But if you use 4.39, billion per standard gauge, and you multiply by the multiple, gauge of 5.167, and you multiply by 700, you'll be getting about roughly 15 trillions. And if you do that of, NDDC, you'll be getting about roughly 14 trillions. And then you ask yourself, you have 4 lanes here, you will procure it at 14 trillion, and you have 10 lanes here with a, train track, with a duct, with solar light, and then you are going to procure it with 15 trillions. I leave you to be the judge. The procurement has been most prudent. And I just told you that a similar project awarded in the last 3 years is costing 5.067 under, flexible pavement. I leave you to run the calculation and make the comparison. They asked, was it a competitive bidding? Yes. Under the Procurement Act, you are allowed to invite a company that has specialized skill in a particular work. In 2019, it was done when ISECON was invited to evaluate, the conditions of the piers in Top Mainland Bridge. And ISECON came from Italy, they did that evaluation. In 2019, they were also invited under the procurement law to review it. And we also did it just of late under me as the Minister for Works. We invited Jilo Beja, to come with us to evaluate the situation of the pier caps, the piers, within the Kata Bridge, within the Top Mainland Bridge, and the Idodo Bridge. And we ran it together with them. They brought out their cost. The good thing is that we have cost for the elements that make up the cost of any project. We have cost for concrete ongoing in other projects. And so we negotiated with them and we awarded the job to them. And under EPC plus F also, Kefi to Makurdi. Under EPC plus F also from Makurdi to 9th Mile, in Enugu State. And so, what is the consideration of building a coastal road? You have to consider the issue of ocean surge. Who has the capacity to find ocean surge? Then what comes to mind is that in the years back, I was here in Lagos, and then the ocean along the Ahamabelu Way, many times sacked, residents of VI. And it was like there was no solution to that. And I think that was when Mr. President was the governor of Lagos State. And so he was the one that invited, High Tech. And High Tech declined. But Mr. President, then a governor, insisted that that thing was doable. And that they worked together, and today you can see that not only that, they stopped the flood. Many people were hurriedly selling their lands in VI because of the menace. But they have curated a Dubai kind of atmosphere that is the pride of Nigerians. And if supported, then we can turn our tourism in Dubai to this part of the world. And so that is number one. So they have that pedigree of fighting, ocean surge. And you can testify that since they got involved, we've not had the flooding across their shore protection. You now talk about the reinforced concrete, which is what is desirable for the coastal road. And so you come to mind which company has succeeded in terms of reinforced concrete, road construction. And you look at Apapa Oshodi, your witnesses to the menace we had before this road was reconstructed by Dangote and High Tech under the tax credit. So they have succeeded in that. You go to Lekki Deep Sea Port, you look at the projects that they are doing there, they have succeeded. So when you look at the two parameters, while choosing a contractor for the coastal road, you can turn them up that they have done very well. And that's the consideration. That is also in line with the Procurement Act. So we call them, we debated, and we use the elements of the ongoing projects. And if I use the parameter of the Bodo Boni, then the project will be higher. But I said, look, we don't query the past administration projects. There were conditions and there were issues, and so they did their best and they did what they seem to be right. But under administration, where things are harder and challenging, we have to evolve our own programs, we have to evolve our own strategy and techniques. And if you don't like it, you can pull out. We are not begging any contractor. No contractor is indispensable. So that's our cost. And so High Tech had to accept. And I'm very proud of what is going on. When you talk about how come Dave Umahi designed the project within 7 months, the project could be designed within 6 months, 5 months, 3 months. But in construction, design is ongoing, soil test is ongoing. So everything that is done, nothing is permanent, because when you are doing soil test, you are not taking every inch of the land. You take 50 meters. What happens between 50 meters, you may not know. So, but it's during construction that we find out. And when you find out, then you have to change the design, to suit that soil condition. And that's what happened. But be assured that designing and redesigning is ongoing within the context of the contingency fund that we have. It's inherent in all projects. And so this is the much I can say about the coastal route. And you talk about return on investment. It cannot be overemphasized. Along the corridor, we are going to procure, in liaison with the state government, corridors, acquire land. And from there, tourism will develop. And from there, estates, factories, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be win-win affair. And then, of course, the train station. And there will be activities, water. Water transportation will be enhanced by the reason of this project. So the return on the investment is very huge. And I ran the figures this morning that if the 47.47 is completed, and I told it in 2 sections, and I give an average of 50,000 vehicles, the big vehicles are charged about 6,000, the small vehicle charged about 1,000, 1,005. So take an average of 3,000 and run the figures on that 2 toll points. And then you find out that within 15 years, you've recovered your money plus. In fact, when I ran the figures, I have about 1.67, trillions in 15 years. And so the return on investment is very huge and it's very convenient, and the people will no longer probably, be the only means of traveling is going to be by plane. People will take joy in traveling by road because along the entire corridor we are using solar light. Along the entire corridor, anywhere you are totally also going to have, toll stations where you have filling stations, you have hotels there, you have, viewing point, because all our roads is going to have, CCTV, so that instead of blocking the road, we stay at a point with security agencies, you view what is happening on the road. And so our intention is that our response time for any eventuality on that road should be 10 minutes. And that's what we are doing on Tom Mainland Bridge.